Did you know that for 13 years, America went completely dry, and yet crime and corruption skyrocketed? What really happened during Prohibition wasn't just about alcohol, it was a story of secret speakeasies, powerful mob bosses, and a society completely divided. Today, we're uncovering the hidden history of Prohibition in the United States, and the shocking truths your history books never told you. The birth of Prohibition. The story begins in the early 20th century. The temperance movement had been growing for decades. Religious groups, social reformers, and women's organizations all pushed for a nation free from alcohol. They argued that drinking led to poverty, domestic violence, and moral decay. In 1920, the 18th Amendment was ratified, and the Volstead Act enforced it. Suddenly, manufacturing, selling, and transporting alcohol became illegal across the entire United States. Bars were forced to close, breweries shut down, and America officially entered the era known as Prohibition. But instead of creating a sober society, Prohibition sparked a wave of hidden drinking spots known as speakeasies. These secret clubs popped up in basements, back rooms, and even under the noses of the police. And where there's demand, there's money, and that's when organized crime saw an opportunity they couldn't resist. The rise of speakeasies and organized crime. As speakeasies multiplied across cities like New York, Chicago, and Boston, ordinary citizens found ways to break the law just to enjoy a drink. Passwords, hidden doors, and secret tunnels became common in these underground bars. But it wasn't just about fun. Prohibition created a booming black market. Enter the mob bosses. Figures like Al Capone turned illegal alcohol into a multi-billion-dollar empire. They bribed politicians, intimidated police, and even staged violent gang wars over territory. What was supposed to curb drinking instead fueled the growth of America's most dangerous criminals. By the mid-1920s, it became clear Prohibition wasn't just failing, it was reshaping society. From cozy speakeasies to brutal street battles, the era was defined by secrecy, rebellion, and power struggles that the government couldn't control. The public, the law, and the collapse of Prohibition. While mob bosses and speakeasies thrived, ordinary Americans were caught in a strange new world. Families watched as neighbors secretly flouted the law. Middle-class citizens, who had never thought of breaking the law, suddenly found themselves sipping whiskey in hidden rooms or hosting small private parties with bootleg liquor. Drinking became an act of rebellion, and speakeasies weren't just for gangsters. They were for anyone seeking a taste of freedom. Law enforcement struggled to keep up. Police departments were underfunded and under pressure, while federal agents were vastly outnumbered. Bribery was rampant, and in some cities, it was easier for criminals to buy protection than to face justice. The Volstead Act, meant to stop alcohol, became nearly impossible to enforce. The social consequences were staggering. Crime rates soared, violent gang wars filled the streets of Chicago, and even politics wasn't spared. Bribery and corruption infiltrated city halls and federal offices alike. Ordinary citizens began questioning whether Prohibition was really about morality or simply a failed experiment that empowered criminals. At the same time, the Great Depression hit in 1929, and the economic realities made Prohibition even harder to justify. People needed jobs, and legalizing alcohol could bring back countless opportunities for breweries, bars, and restaurants, along with tax revenue desperately needed by the government. Public opinion shifted. No longer seen as a noble cause, Prohibition was increasingly viewed as a nationwide experiment. Gone terribly wrong. By the early 1930s, the cracks were undeniable. Speakeasies still thrived, mobs still ruled the streets, and Americans everywhere were quietly flouting the law. The ideal of a sober society had failed spectacularly. And in 1933, the 21st Amendment repealed Prohibition, officially ending America's dry era, but the legacy of corruption, organized crime, and social rebellion would be felt for decades to come. Shocking facts and untold stories of Prohibition. While most Americans remember Prohibition as a period of dry laws and speakeasies, there are countless stories that rarely make it into history books. For example, not all alcohol was illegal. Medicinal whiskey was allowed, and doctors could prescribe it for a variety of ailments. This loophole created a booming black market for prescriptions, with some pharmacies selling bottles to anyone who could pay. Bootlegging wasn't just about making money, it was a highly organized and dangerous business. Rum runners risked their lives smuggling liquor across lakes, rivers, and even international borders. Some used speedboats to outrun the Coast Guard, while others built secret tunnels between Canada and the United States. It's estimated that tens of thousands of gallons of illegal alcohol were transported every week, fueling the wealth of organized crime in ways the public could scarcely imagine. And then there were the speakeasies, far more than just hidden bars. Some were high-end clubs with orchestras, dancers, and even private rooms for politicians and celebrities to drink without fear of arrest. These places became centers of social rebellion, where jazz, flappers, and modern culture flourished. In many ways, Prohibition inadvertently helped shape American pop culture. But not all stories were glamorous. Poisoned alcohol became a deadly threat. Desperate bootleggers sometimes sold industrial alcohol mixed with dangerous chemicals, leading to thousands of deaths. In Chicago alone, hundreds were poisoned every year, and some estimates suggest that nationwide, Prohibition-related alcohol poisonings killed over 10,000 people. The law intended to protect public health was instead causing tragedy on a massive scale. Even more shocking, corruption wasn't limited to street-level crime. Politicians, police officers, and judges were bribed regularly. Some historians suggest that the influence of organized crime during Prohibition set the stage for the rise of modern American mob culture, creating networks that would last well into the mid-20th century. Prohibition was supposed to save America from moral decay, but it did the opposite. It encouraged rebellion, empowered criminals, and created a society where lawbreaking became normalized. By the time the 21st Amendment was passed in 1933, the nation had learned a harsh lesson. Legislating morality isn't as simple as passing a law. And trying to outlaw a deeply ingrained social habit can have consequences far beyond anyone's imagination. Lessons and legacy of Prohibition. Prohibition officially ended in 1933 with the ratification of the 21st Amendment, but its impact on American society lasted for decades. The era taught the nation some hard lessons about law, morality, and human behavior. First, it showed that simply passing a law doesn't guarantee compliance. People will often find ways to bend or break rules, especially when those rules go against deeply ingrained social habits. Speakeasies, bootlegging, and bribery were proof that Americans were willing to defy the law to enjoy alcohol. Second, Prohibition revealed the unintended consequences of social experiments. What was intended to create a safer, more moral society instead fueled organized crime, corruption, and public health disasters. The mobs that rose to power during this time left a lasting mark on America, influencing criminal networks and law enforcement strategies for generations. Third, it highlighted the power of public opinion. As the Great Depression worsened, citizens demanded change. Not only for economic reasons, but because the law was widely seen as unfair and unenforceable. Ultimately, it was the voice of the people that led to the repeal of Prohibition. Finally, Prohibition had lasting cultural effects. Jazz music, flapper culture, and the idea of rebellion against authority became intertwined with the era. The stories of speakeasies and secret drinking societies are still told today, reminding us how society adapts when faced with restrictive laws. Prohibition may have ended nearly a century ago, but its lessons remain relevant. It's a powerful reminder that legislation alone cannot change human behavior, and that sometimes the path to freedom and chaos is just a glass away. So next time you raise a drink, remember, America's dry era wasn't just about booze. It was a time of secrets, scandals, and survival, shaping the country in ways most people never imagined.